Welcome, everyone, to Fundraising Academy's webinar on ethics and fundraising, navigating AI, DEI, and donor trust. We're so glad to be here today with you all. We'll give you a moment to get settled in. My name is Muhi Khwaja, trainer at Fundraising Academy with National University, and I've been with the team for a few years now and just so glad to have this opportunity to be with my good friend and mentor, Jack Alato.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here as well. And as Mui said, I am your presenter. You want to introduce me, Mui? I mean, you can say nice things about me. I like hearing compliments.
Definitely. Jack is a treasure of knowledge, somebody who has guided so many people through their CFRE journey. He and I first met 9 years ago in San Francisco at an AFP training for my CFRE. So many people have a connection to Jack through that. But out in the community, Jack has been an industry leader in development and fundraising through his work in the healthcare industry, and prior to Fundraising Academy with so many great organizations, teaching, training, leading, developing relationships. So I'm sure in the comments there will be more lore about Jack, and we're so glad to have him here today.
Yeah. And Mui, guess where I am? I am right now in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm sitting in this beautiful building that is owned by the United Way of Chattanooga. And Chattanooga is a beautiful city. It's my first trip to the city in Tennessee. And I had a chance yesterday to take a look at the Tennessee River.
Oh,
So I'm
beautiful.
happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, and just like I said, all the praises coming in those comments about you.
Oh,
So be sure
good.
to take a look and warm your fuzzy heart.
Okay, I will. As long as that it comes out in our final evaluation, that's what matters most, right?
So, a little word about Fundraising Academy. We are here to equip you, fundraising leaders and nonprofit professionals, with basics on fundraising. You have access to many of these webinars, which you can check out in our portal, and we'll have links for that later. But we're here as a resource for you to learn more about the best practices, and especially this gem of a piece right here, the cause selling cycle. So I can share a little bit, but also Jack can get into it as well, as he's an expert. But really, it's broken up into 3 phases. Think about your pre-planning, your connecting, your long-term relationship building as well. So prospecting, everything you would think of, and trying to find information and the connection to your donor on behalf of your organization, the pre-approach, getting all of the items ready and necessary for you to develop that relationship further. Is there a giving history? What other types of charities do you know that this family or institution may be giving to? And the approach is all you need to do in order to deepen that relationship, how you want to go about it, what methods are you going to use, what works for them, trying to figure out the most about the donor psyche and their motivations and what will connect and land your message across. Then you have need discovery about what are those alignments and goals and values that the donor has, and using all of this information to come up with the perfect, unique presentation. And even when you do that, you may end up handling some objections. The donor may need some more clarity around the program that you want them to fund, or the organization and institution. And once you do that, then you're ready to make the coveted ask. And in that, you know that you're putting your best foot forward because you've done all of the previous steps. And hopefully this leads towards the donor making a contribution and gift. And that's when we have the most critical step of stewardship, where you get to showcase the impact of how that contribution made a difference. And then you start all over again with building that relationship and deepening the connection, and hopefully becoming an annual supporter, if not a major gift donor, and a lifelong supporter through planned gifts. So this is what we teach in the cause selling cycle. And I will pass it over to Jack because he can do everything else.
Yeah, I love this fundraising cycle, this cause selling cycle. There are many fundraising cycles out there, but I am particularly fond of this one because it's so grounded in building relationships. And relationships are the heart of fundraising. When you build relationships, and each stage of this stage of this fundraising cycle is grounded in building relationships. Now, it's really important for us to know that this month is Ethics Month. It's AFP Ethics Month. And we are going to, here are our objectives for today. We want to talk about ethics in that cause selling cycle, in the donor journey through that cause selling cycle. We want to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, an ethical approach to using it. It's growing exponentially. It's time to talk about ethics. There's lots of controls coming around ethics, etc. And of course, we want to talk about why diversity, equity, and inclusion are ethical. They're ethical. And by the way, Mui, I hope you'll monitor chat, interrupt me anytime if people want to make a comment. Now, do I know everything about ethics? Of course not. Do I know everything about the donor journey? Of course not. So we are counting on you guys to interrupt us. You're professional fundraisers. You know ethics just as well as a lot of other people, including us. So we want to hear from you. Interrupt us, get in chat, and we will definitely interrupt me. So Deandra Hicks, who is our famous person, she's got that poll up there. So take a minute, guys, and take a look at this poll and tell us how many years of fundraising experience do you have? I'm not answering this poll because my years it's off the chart here.
They'll need a special section just for Jack. And definitely there's a question about CFRE credit. All of Fundraising Academy's courses and webinars are eligible for CFRE credit. And great commentary coming in the chat about different CFRE resources, audio books, books to read, podcasts, things like that. So
yeah,
that's what's going on in the chat.
Well, I've been in Chattanooga these last few days talking about CFRE and running a CFRE review. The wonderful thing, Mui, while they're finishing up this poll, all of our webinars, etc., that have continuing education credits are free. Free. I can't emphasize that enough, that you could build that towards those 80 continuing education credits or education credits that you need, whether you're looking for the CFRE or if you're already a CFRE about to, and you're going to re-up after 3 years, you need those continuing education credits, and they're all here and they're free.
Super critical. And we have some 6% brand new, less than a year, 11% 1 to 3 years, 28% 4 to 7 years, 19% of you have 8 to 10 years of experience, and the majority, 36%, have 10 or plus years. So thank you for being here with all of your experience.
We love all of you guys. You're doing the work, and we're so appreciative of you. Thanks so much for filling this out. We really appreciate it. And we will move along right to our next slide, which is ethics through the donor life cycle. You saw this cause selling cycle a few minutes ago. And as we look at that, ethics are a critical part of every single stage of the donor life cycle through our cause selling fundraising cycle. For example, ethics exists in solicitation and stewardship. You have to be ethical, and you hear more about that as we move along. In phase one, ethics in prospect, the importance of confidentiality, the importance of maintaining the transparency and accountability in the first phase, as well as the second phase, which is our cultivation, outreach, and presentation. If you are presenting to a donor, we want to make sure that we are not presenting inflated numbers about impact or about the number of people we serve, etc. And as I mentioned earlier, ethics in solicitation and stewardship, when you're telling the donor about what their gift has done, we want to make sure that we do it with honesty and integrity. So we have another poll here, which I'm sure Deandra will put those questions up. How many, what is it? How many on a scale of 1 to 5, how ethical would you rate your organization? Scale of 1 to 5. This is a great question. I like to say that I came up with it, but I didn't, Louis. And guess what? Neither did you. It was Jessica, our coworker. She came up with this
I
question.
thought
And
you
when
were
I
going to
saw
say it was AI.
it, not yet, but hopefully that will be coming down the pike someday. But yeah, this is a really important question.
Yeah, and 5 is the most for those who are asking for clarity. Yeah.
5 is the most ethical, and 4. Well, it's good to see that there are not 1 or 2s in this group. Every organization has some ethical consideration, right?
Right. Excellent. So we have 6% at 3, 56%, the majority at 4, and 38% at 5.
Nice. Great. All right, so let's move right along to our next slide, which is prospect research, which we talked about a few minutes ago. That takes place during that first phase of the cause selling cycle. There are 6 major ethical considerations we have to have in this part of our donor journey through the fundraising cycle. Donor privacy and confidentiality are paramount, guys. The donor has the right to control their personal information, not the organization and not the fundraiser. The donor has the right to make sure that what you have in your database regarding them is accurate. Confidentiality is a critical important in fundraising for several ethical, legal, and practical reasons. Confidentiality is also not only as part of the donor bill of rights, it's also a legal requirement in many states and in Canada as well. So it's really important that we honor confidentiality. We do not share information about our prospects and donors, the amount of their gift, etc. I can't tell you, and Mui, chime in here, the number of times in my career when someone has come up to me in the organization and said, can you tell me how much Mr. Smith gave during the annual campaign? And I've always had the same answer. I cannot share that information about what Mr. Smith gave without Mr. Smith agreeing to me sharing that information. So confidentiality is key. As I mentioned, donor privacy, wealth screening, which I don't know how many, next time we do this, we should do a poll on how many people use wealth screening. Do you use wealth screening, Mui? Have you used it in the past? Give me some color around this.
Yeah, definitely. We implement wealth screening through our CRM. I'm not going to say which one, but it's embedded in the service. And we had it in the contract. So it does a star rating between 1 and 5 stars. And, the more stars, the wealthier they are. And it helps us come up with how we're going to have conversations. It's not 100% accurate, right? There could be some information that's miscalculated or misrepresented, but it just gives us an indication of how to possibly segment our strategies.
Good. Well, with wealth screening, I think there are a number of key ethical considerations we have. The first is do not conduct wealth screening without permission. Ask your donors or tell them that you will be conducting some wealth screening. Collect data. Number 2 is collect data only from sources that prospects have made publicly accessible. What does that mean? Look at websites, look at public records, look at annual reports of other organizations where they may have made a gift. Look at published interviews, articles, and definitely look at social media. So only collect data from things that are publicly available. Avoid researching personal matters unrelated to the philanthropic goals of your organization. If you're an arts organization, you don't need to know a lot of personal information about family dynamics around maybe drug abuse. It's not relevant to your philanthropic mission or your philanthropic goal. So make sure in well screening, collect information that is only related to philanthropy. And as I said earlier, only use public information and relevant information from things like real estate records, annual reports, published information, and gifts that they've made to other organizations. This is all public, and most wealth screening, whether it's Wealth Engine or some other wealth screening technology, does only public records. And finally, maintain internal transparency by documenting how you've collected that wealth information for your donors. Biases in prospecting. Remember, each of us have some blatant biases and we have some hidden biases. So it's important for us not to engage in things that would be biased. One of the places where I see a lot of bias in prospecting is when we use demographic information. If we only go through our donor database and look at gender, race, where they live, etc., we're going to get some information that may be biased in the sense that if we use that demographic information only, as opposed to what Mui and I talked about a week ago for AFP Global, is to look at their psychographic information, their interests, their values, their own personal mission and giving. Those kinds of things are way more important than just collecting demographic information. Transparency, which is down the bottom there, transparency is the foundation of trust. Any successful nonprofit organization must engage in transparency, because if you don't engage in transparency, you will not be able to build trust. Trust is what keeps donors giving to our organization. As I say, a lot of times, transparency is the foundation of trust. And the way you can demonstrate your transparency is by providing accessible information about your budget, about the sources of revenue, about the board composition, about programs, outcomes, staffing, and donors. And one great document that you could do this is by publishing an annual report where you list all of those things. And transparency is really key. What about some activities as it relates to state regulations, like donor consent? One of the things that we should always seek to do, no matter what we're doing, whether we're discovering needs discovery or presentation, is always seek consent from our donors and possibles when possible, particularly during one-on-one engagements. When we are in a cultivation with a prospective donor, we could ask them, are you okay with us doing wealth screening? Are you okay with us looking at other places where you've given gifts? Guys, I know it's scary to do those kind of things, but when you show them that level of transparency that your organization does that, they're going to trust you more. And asking for them their consent is really a very important thing that we should do around everything that we do with our donors and prospects. Very important. As I said earlier, avoid biases in prospecting. And one way to do that, to avoid those biases, is by not relying solely on sex, gender, race, where they live, etc. So there are many ethical standards that we see around these things. And when you get the notes and the PowerPoint from this, you'll see quite a bit around there. So
just some thoughts on the different phases and how it aligns to this too, right? So the transparency, you definitely want to also do what you can on, say, like a charity navigator or guide star, filling out your information so that it's more easily publicly accessible. But
Mhm.
also just on your website, having a page there that links all of your previous 990s or your
I love
audits that
that.
you have,
Yeah.
and along with a document like an annual report. So, and the donor consent really is an opportunity for engaging your donors and getting their insights in the process as well.
Yeah. On this slide, we see some things around some of the things that we just talked about. If a donor wishes to remain anonymous, they must remain anonymous. Present misuse of information. You know how you prevent misuse of information and actualize donor privacy is by not giving everyone in your organization access to your database. It should be limited to a few people. Confidentiality is achieved and it must be maintained across the board. As I said earlier about wealth screening, be only use information that is public. And of course, don't only rely on demographic data. It's not complete. And most organizations do rely a great deal on demographic information. You could do psychographic information. This is not hard. You could do it by when you're doing cultivation. So ask them a series of questions around their values, their interests, what mission they want to accomplish, what they want to see happen with their goals. And of course, transparency is something we talked about. Donor consent is key to ethical fundraising. So in the pre-approach, approach, and need discovery, we talk about several things. A case for support. Remember what the case for support does. It articulates the underlying rationale for why someone should make a gift to your organization. It serves as both a foundation for key messages used by fundraisers. I always like to say that case for support can be used in your annual giving letter. It should be used on your website. You could use it in newsletters. Anybody who has attended any of my CFRE reviews know that I am a big proponent of the case for support. And it's really important that we do several things when we are writing that case for support. And unfortunately, I don't talk about this enough when I do that CFR review. One of the things is we must maintain transparency in the case for support by articulating clearly the how contributions will be used, how all contributions and communications with donors must not be manipulative. Our appeals to donors must not be manipulative. We should not use manipulative emotional tactics to get a gift or to bring someone closer to the organization. Clients and beneficiaries, and this is key, guys, clients and beneficiaries of your organization must be represented with dignity. Avoid dehumanizing your beneficiaries and clients or portraying them as stereotypes, which we have a habit of doing. And whatever you do, please do not do what we sometimes call poverty porn. And I'm sure I could give you lots of examples, but I won't do that today of places where I see poverty porn. Anything you'd like to add to this?
Well, one of the questions that came in from Suela is that coming in around the wealth screening. So, can you please elaborate more on how we inform or ask prospect donors that we will conduct wealth screening on them? An example might help. And one that I would like to share is maybe
Go ahead.
even on the donation form, having like a small, fine print, but not like crazy taking away from the donation of the page, but saying we will be utilizing your data for wealth screening and learning more about you or something along those lines. What insights do you
Yeah.
have to share around that, Jack?
So I like that on the donor form, but you know where I think the best place to do that is in cultivation in a face-to-face meeting. You could do it in writing as Mui just said, but just you might say something that, our organization, utilizes some technology around a capability to make a gift. Are you okay with that? Simple question like that. I mean, if you say wealth screening sounds so harsh to me. I don't know about you, Movie, but wealth screening, I'm going to wealth screen you. And I'm like, whoa, I don't want you to wealth screen. But maybe saying it in a way that is more inviting for them to say yes, saying we utilize technology to determine, giving capacity, giving ability. Are you okay with that? That's one place where I think they'll typically say yes. I think one of the things that we underestimate our donors, and I know it sounds scary to say, hey, we're going to run some technology to determine your giving capacity and how much we think we're going to ask you. That's a rough thing to do. But you know something? Our donors are waiting for us to show them integrity and honesty. And when you ask them about wealth screening, whether it's on the form or whether it's in person, you are demonstrating to them that you have integrity, that your organization has integrity, and that you are honest brokers of information that you are going to be giving them. I hope that helps, guys. Two ways to do it. Louis mentioned one in writing on that response form. And I think cultivation, sitting down with them and just telling them, letting them know that you have some technology that you are going to be using. So I think also in the case for support, some things that are important is using diverse voices and perspectives. Incorporate it when discussing needs and impact. Very important to as part of the diversity initiative of your organization to actually use their voices in the creation of the case for support or in any communications that you give. And of course, the case for support has to align with your organization's mission, vision, and values. I'm going to say that a lot. Whether it's the case for support or the annual report or your solicitation techniques or whatever it is, it must align with your organization's mission, vision, and values. That's the ethical thing. I think that's very important. And remember, the privacy of donors and clients is important. In your case for support or when you're approaching those donors for the first time or you're sitting down in need discovery or cultivation, really be able to clearly articulate what success looks like. What are the expected outcomes and what are the methods you use to measure the effectiveness of your work? That's the ethical thing to do, guys. Remember to guarantee that all solicited funds will be used for the purposes stated in that case for support. And be honest and accurate. Don't cherry pick your results. Here's the thing that I like to say, and maybe you certainly could add to this. Donors give to challenges. They want to hear challenges. Your board members want to hear about your challenges. They want to give to challenges. They want to help you solve some problem. Donors don't give to your success. They give to the future and they give to challenges that you see coming up in the future. What do you think about that concept, Louis?
Yeah, I've often noticed that it is more of a personalized relationship, and the way that you get to connect as a relationship manager, you are representing the organization, but oftentimes it could be a connection from a board member, a family friend, so on and so forth, that knows somebody, maybe even a beneficiary. So having these voices also represented in the case for support and in your communications is also
Yeah.
very critical and important.
Yeah, I think it's critically important that we include the beneficiaries' voices in our case for support, which is the foundation document of fundraising, one of the foundational documents of fundraising. Presentation, handling objections, and asking. Okay, the first thing I have up here on this slide: honor their purpose. When you are giving them a solicitation or asking for a gift, and you get some gifts, when they make a gift, and even as they're writing that check, give them assurance that the funds are going to be used as they intended. Keep records and data that are good and that really articulate, especially as to intent. If they say they want to give to homeless, or they say want to give to the feeding program, whatever it is, make sure that your records are accurate with that. Be sensitive to the donors as to their vision and their values, and reasons that they're making a gift. I mean, if you've worked in any social service organization, you know that donors come there with their own history of maybe they needed social services as when they were younger. Maybe they have, if it's a mental health agency, maybe they have some member of their family who is dealing with a mental health issue. Be sensitive to that. Be truthful in all communications with your donors about impact, the results of the work you do. Be honest and transparent in all communications. I've said that before. In addition, when you are soliciting donors, make sure that your solicitations are conducted with integrity and honesty and transparency, and respect. Respect the donor. Recognize a donor's right to say no and to remain anonymous and to restrict their gift. I think those are three important things about asking. I want to repeat it. Remember, donors have the right to say no, and they have the right to remain anonymous, and they have the right to restrict their gift. So let's not try to manipulate them into giving to a program that we like, or giving more money than they want to, or not interested in a specific program. Remember that. It's really important. Represent the organization's mission and its financial needs honestly.
And
And I think
what I
that's,
would
go ahead.
also add to that is use what you know, use your mission to inspire the donor. Not that they need to change their restricted gift to unrestricted, but my time at American Red Cross, majority of donations came in for restricted response to disaster relief.
Yeah.
Right. And it was our job as relationship managers to talk about the four other departments of the Red Cross and inform the donor about all of the work that American Red Cross does. And in those opportunities, some donors would go from restricted donors to unrestricted, but
Yeah.
other donors would double down on their restriction and say, I'm only giving because there is an explicit need right now to respond, and I
Yeah.
want to give to the disaster relief operations. So, you'll get to learn more about your donor. These may not be objections, but they're indications, and they still want to give, but they're informing you their preference. So
Right.
having these conversations about restricted versus unrestricted help you better understand their motivation for giving and the donor intent and honoring
Yeah.
that.
I love that technique at, where you get a restricted gift, but you talk about the other four programs at the American Red Cross. That's also a great technique, by the way, Mui, I think, is if you are sitting down, you're about to ask for a gift. Let's say you're sitting down with a donor and you're about to ask for a $5,000 gift, major gift for your organization. And all of a sudden they hand you a check for $2,500. I ask this question all the time in my classes. What do you do? And they all have different answers, but the one that I think really works is to say, thank you for this gift. Let me tell you about some of the other programs that are challenging for us. Maybe if it's the Red Cross, you might talk about the four other programs that they're not making that gift, and why it's so important for us to fund those. And then maybe they'll reconsider the amount of their gift. And a lot of times I've seen where they will reconsider because you've explained to them the need, the impact, etc. Okay. So also remember not to pressure, guilt, or manipulate donors into giving. I haven't seen much of this in my career, but it is a key tenet, that we don't want to pressure people, guilt, or manipulate donors. I'm sure there are some organizations that do this, especially around the guilt part of it. So we want to be mindful not to do that thing. One of the things that really is important for me, and I'll just spend a minute, and Mui, give me your thoughts. That I think it's important. for us to disclose the cost and impact around which percentage of the funds goes to admin and which percentage goes to programs. I know it's a big, hard thing for us in the fundraising profession. You know, some out there it's become, sinful to give and support administration. But I think it's really important for us to explain the importance of administration in forwarding the mission and the programs and the services of the organization, and how important administrative support is to achieving that mission. And I think that a lot of people have a problem with that. And I say, stand up to it, tell them why you need administrative costs, and don't back down. It's really important. When you are and Mui, do you have any thoughts on that before I go on?
Nope, I'll let you finish and then I'll chime in.
When you're handling an objection, whether it's about admin or whatever, be honest and always talk about the organization's challenge. Don't fudge your impact. Keep your mission, vision, and values in the forefront. Go ahead, Mui.
I think that when you look at your overall relationship with your donor, you want to look at, a lot of different organizations call it different things. So some may call it moves management, some may call it, deepening the relationship, or I often like to refer to it to providing mission moments. And the more that you can do around providing these opportunities, around, I would say it's like the opposite situation around like the guilting the donor, right? But you want to reverse that and motivate the donor to get integrated. And, it may be that 9 times out of 10, the donor will pass on the invite, or they're busy or have some other opportunity going on. But that 1 out of 10, they're going to appreciate it so much. Those are the donors that you're looking for, the needle in the haystack to move the relationship forward, and provide those mission moments. So it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of presenting multiple opportunities and invitations to the donors. But these are the little drips that you put in front of them that then create the top of mind awareness for the donor and their connection to your organization. So just because you continue to hear, no, they can't come to the tour for your facility, or no, they can't volunteer at your organization's soup kitchen, or they can't come to the gala for your fundraiser, don't let that stop you thinking of the next opportunity of engagement.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really key. So what about stewardship? So lots of things around stewardship. Gift acknowledgement is really important. And what we say at the Fundraising Academy is send thank yous and receipts promptly. Be prompt. I mean, sometimes I have experienced organizations where I send them a gift and they never thank me. I don't know how that happens. And then before you know it, I'm getting a second request for a gift, which is never going to happen because of poor stewardship. If we want to look at why we have such low donor retention, it's right here in stewardship. So send thank you notes in promptly as you can. Be sure to inform donors how their funds were used. That's important for them to have that impact, and recognize them in the way they wish to be recognized. If they want to be anonymous, keep them anonymous. If they want to be in a donor wall or in your newsletter or whatever, do it. Whatever they ask you to do. Accurately inform donors of the tax deductibility of their gifts. And I think as nonprofit organizations, we fall short many times with special events where we're not sure how to do that, or we don't know what the cost. Typically, we have to take out the cost of the special event because that is not deductible. If it's a golf tournament, for example, there is a cost incurred to be in the tournament, to golf at some country club, etc. But one of the things that I think are key in this stewardship is really to ask your donors for input or any concerns or complaints that they have about your organization, whether it's in stewardship or in prospect research. I love this. I know of an organization in, I sent them, I was doing some consulting work for them, and I sent them a small gift. And I sent it through their website. I immediately got a survey and it had like 5 questions on it. It was really brief, and I don't like long surveys. I don't have the time. And what they said at the beginning of the survey, they said, please fill out the survey, Jack. It will take you 3 minutes to complete. It's 5 questions about your experience, Jack, making a gift on our website. It was so effective. They asked me, was it easy to make a gift? Why did I make the gift? That kind of thing. So always ask your donors, whether it's at the beginning of the donor cycle, the cost selling cycle, or at stewardship. Always ask them about their experience. And guess what? They're going to tell you, and they're going to love you for asking for their input. That's key. Avoid over promotional language, guys, in the solicitation or in the stewardship or in the cultivation. When we're acknowledging a gift, avoid over the top thank yous. I think it's seen as fake, and it's just not cool to do that kind of thing. Be clear in communications, maintain confidentiality, and let them know that you will keep their gift confidential. Don't exaggerate gifts amounts. Don't exaggerate impact, etc. Here's a question I get all the time in my classes. I even got it here in Chattanooga, and that was, what if you have a capital campaign? And Mui, I'm going to ask you this question. What if you're doing a capital campaign and a $50,000 gift will put their name on some building? Let's just pretend. And a donor comes to you, Mui, and says, Mui, I want my name on that building, but I only want to give you 35,000. How do you handle that? They want to give you less than what the naming opportunity demands.
Yeah, this is interesting. And I think if you have the proper processes and policies in place at your institution, and you have a guideline of, either giving societies or what a major gift is and the different types of major gifts, and more importantly, the acknowledgement that is appropriate with that size of gift, then you can simply let the donor know, well, at our institution, we actually have this written out policy that states XYZ. So I would bring it back to the institution and the culture of philanthropy that's instated there, stating that for equality among our donors, we provide and value the respect the donor gift at this amount for this purpose. So we unfortunately wouldn't be able to give you the value of a name on the building for a gift of this size.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you point to a really important thing, and something that I think is one of the most ethical things we have. And it really covers us. And that's a gift acceptance policy. And it's critically important that we have a gift acceptance policy, because then we could say to that donor, our gift acceptance policies say this. And in my career working in healthcare, and probably yours in healthcare, one of the things that I frequently got asked about, will you accept, like, for example, tobacco money or alcohol money? And I could always fall back on the gift acceptance policies and say, you know what? Thank you for offering that. But our gift acceptance policies prohibit gifts from tobacco companies or alcohol companies or whatever. So that is really an important thing that we need to be mindful of.
So
So
just before we come into the
sure, go ahead.
community share, Heather asks for an example of an over-the-top thank you. So if you seemed like you lit up when you said it, so I feel like you have an example of what an
I don't.
over-the-top thank you might be.
So I mean, gosh, Heather, I don't know who you are, but you're putting me on the spot right now. But I think if you get a gift of $100 and you go and you like exaggerate the impact, you say that $100 is going to feed a family of four, it's going to house them for a month, and we are so grateful. We love you. We care so much about you. Your family is blessed to have you in it. Those are over the top things. Okay. I mean, where you just go on and on and on to a donor. And I may have written some of them in my career, but we don't tell anybody. This is just between the people on this webinar. I've probably written some of that. And I think it's important that we acknowledge and be thankful at the level at which they have given the gift. Now, here's the thing I got to say, because, I have to add a caveat to that because when I worked in social services, when I worked in faith-based organizations, and Mui, maybe you see this in your faith-based organizations, I would get in the envelope a dollar bill with a little note saying, hey, this is all I could afford. I'm 91 years old and I'm on, a limited income. So here's $1 towards your mission. And it probably costs us way more than $1 to process that gift because it was cash. But I often was over the top thankful to that donor. Maybe I didn't write it in a letter, but in my heart, I felt that this was a gift of love, and it was something that all they could do. And probably I wanted to be over the top thankful, but I wasn't. But I mean, $1 gift from somebody with that kind of a note was as meaningful to me as a $10,000 gift or $100,000 gift. So stewardship and being thankful. I think if we know the people and why they give the gift and where it's coming from, an act of love like a buck, I'll take it.
Absolutely. Those are some of my favorite gifts. And those are the ones that I'm excited to call the donor back and thank
Oh
them
yeah.
for their
And
gift.
be over the top thankful. Thank you so much for that dollar gift. We love you. We appreciate you. You're advancing our mission. And even though it may cost us way more. How's that, Heather? Are those two good examples that we gave you?
Yeah. And she was in 2 of your study groups and she got her CFRE. So,
Oh, congratulations. So now she's a smart CFRE and she's giving me some guff, huh?
yeah.
Let's do our community share. How does your
So
organization use AI? Go ahead, Louie. I'm sorry.
I was just going to read it for you. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Type in the chat. Let us know different ways in which you are integrating artificial intelligence into your organizations. Some of your CRMs may have the capacity to do some more integration and developing the next ask, or maybe even writing an acknowledgement letter for you, drafting it, being witty, or being more professional. I've seen some of those capabilities. Heather also states that they have an AI tool that uses 36 points to build a list for direct mail. I would imagine that
Wow.
looks into segmenting. Debbie mentions that it helps jumpstart the appeal letter. So these are great ways. Heather also uses AI to assist with writing various thank you notes. Julia says that they use it for very basic stuff to write socials and emails. And we're getting a whole host of them coming in now. So let me catch up.
Nice. Yeah.
Writing phone scripts, quickly editing messages for various platforms once you have content created. Somebody used it for a presentation they did earlier today. Another mentioned drafting thank you letters, a text for flyers, professional letters, outreach to sponsors, giving it a list of companies where board members work and asking it to do research on gift matching programs. Delved Another said that they haven't delved too much beyond crafting an odd note for donor stewardship, but they hope to learn other various opportunities. Again, more on content creation, updating presentations or social media posts,
Wow.
grant proofing grant proposals, even to create billboards. Others aren't using it, so they're appreciating the ideas that they're getting. So
Good.
wonderful to hear from everyone about the different ways they're utilizing it.
Yeah. This might suggest a future webinar for you and I on uses of AI. The interesting thing about all those comments in chat, Louis, is I would imagine that most of those people haven't been using it for a very long time because it's so relatively new and it is moving exponentially fast. I mean, I like to say that some of the things we talk about, I may have investigated last week or 2 weeks ago, may already be out of date. But as you noted in the chat comments, there are many uses of AI in fundraising. I'll just tell you a few that I'm aware of. One is in writing, and I do use it in writing. I ask Chat GPT to be more concise, or I'll ask them to investigate this or rewrite this paragraph or whatever. So in writing, it's big. It's someone mentioned annual giving letters, grants, whatever. It's really growing quickly in those. It also can be used to assess donor alignment, alignment with your vision, alignment with your values, align with your mission. And it's effective, especially when you have limited knowledge of your donor. Here's the interesting thing about AI. AI could be used by anyone because it doesn't require a large budget. You don't need a lot of money to use AI. There are some very large language models that I found in my research for this webinar that look at donor websites, like foundation websites, and compare it to your organization's work and sees themes and helps you find those foundations or corporations that you might be asking money from. AI is great. You know, we talked about a case for support. AI enables you to sharpen your case for support once you know more about your specific prospect. And you can use AI to sharpen the message and personalize the donor outreach, especially when you're short on time. That is a powerful tool. For example, if you work in a healthcare facility, you might ask your AI companion to tell you something about this specific donor who is interested in behavioral health and how you could sharpen that message around behavioral health, uh, and and then you could go even specific. Maybe it's behavioral health. Maybe it's specifically about mental health with teenagers. And then maybe the third thing that you would ask AI to help you sharpen your case for support with, maybe it's about drug abuse. So it could really get granular in sharpening that case for support for one specific donor who might be a major gift donor or an annual giving donor.
Mhm.
And some fundraisers have used AI to quickly update their generic organization history mission to better align with the mission and vision of a specific prospect. And I have some things about this that we'll talk about as we go into ethics going forward. Oops, I forgot to advance the slide. There we go. So we're talking about how you could use AI. You can generate warm, mission-driven language with a clear sense of the audience you are trying to appeal to. So AI, remember, relying too heavily on AI can make your brain activity not work as well as it should be. So it's important to set up guardrails about AI. And here are three guardrails that I think are really important. One, never compromise your values when you're using AI. Two, remember this, guys, and I think this is so important around ethics and AI. Remember that algorithms are built on data, your data, that may reflect social inequalities. This may be, if your data is uh, not diverse or inclusive or have some inequalities in it, AI systems will unintentionally use that data to prioritize or exclude certain groups. And you're just going to reinforce the disparities you already have in your organization by using AI. Be super careful because your database is key here. Make sure that your database does not prioritize certain groups over others because AI will do the same. Number three, remember that as a nonprofit leader, that's you, using AI, you must prioritize transparency, trust, accountability, accuracy, and honesty over any benefits that AI gives you in the fundraising process. Ethics must be the foundation of any benefits that you think you're going to get from AI. If they're not there, then the benefits are, as far as I'm concerned, useless.
One
So go ahead.
one thing that I wanted to jump in with is, if you're going to put in information, know that it becomes publicly accessible. So many nonprofits will have a paid version where then it is then private to your institution and the users within your institution. So I would not be entering in donor information. I would not be doing certain things, but other internal uses that might be beneficial, especially if you're a one person development team or a one person nonprofit. More power to you. This time last year, American Muslim Community Foundation was going through our strategic planning process. We had a survey out to board members, to volunteers, to staff members. We used AI to synthesize all of the responses, and it
Nice.
showed, 70% of those polled agree with XYZ, right? So it's showing similarities between the board and staff, and that there's unison there. A lot of times it often feels that they're on different sides of the spectrum. But utilizing AI to analyze the results of a survey can also be super helpful. Um,
Excellent.
so, there's some chats around preferences and platforms. There's Gemini, there's Chat GPT, there's others. I haven't played around with Gemini myself, so I'm only familiar with Chat GPT.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, other people are saying they would love future webinars on how to use it, the issues and
Good.
challenges, and ethical best
Yeah.
practices. So you may be going into some of that as well. So I'll
Yeah.
turn it back over to you.
So yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier to Mui that yeah, we should, DeAndre Hicks is on this call. We should definitely do that. Yes, I agree, and we could do it, and we should do it quickly because it's growing exponentially. Just listening to these comments. So the thing about how do you ethically adopt and use AI? I've given you three things to remember, but I think really one of the most important things is the AI audit. And the AI audit, and here's a heads up. At the end of this webinar, you're going to get a link to a Google Drive. And in that Google Drive, one of the things that we have are the steps to do an AI audit. And all of you guys who just said in chat you're using Gemini or Chat GPT or whatever else is out there, I urge you to go to that Dropbox and get that AI audit and perform it. So what does an AI audit do? I'm going to be brief on this, but an AI audit examines the various components of your AI system, including data, algorithms and models, performance, ethical standards. Okay. Are you adhering to the principles of equity, privacy, fairness, and responsible use? Security, which is becoming a big thing in AI use. In my reading and preparing for this webinar, big thing is security and governments and governance. Who's managing that AI program? Risk management. And why is it important to do an AI audit? Because you have to look at your risk. What is the risk? How are you managing the potential dangers like discrimination, security breaches? There's so many things to consider, and you'll see that in that document when you download it. Compliance. There's a growing legal and regulatory requirements governing AI. It's growing exponentially. Trust and transparency and fostering confidence among developers, users, etc. Accountability. And when should you perform an AI audit? These three things that I've talked about. Excuse me. One, all audits are not a one-time event. When you do that AI audit checklist, it's not a one-time event. it must be an ongoing process, and it should occur at various stages of your AI life cycle and use, including the design and development of whatever AI you're using, deployment of the AI system, Gemini, ChatGPT, etc., when you're using it, and operation and monitoring. So AI is such an important. Here are some other things that we have that we think are important in cause selling. In cause selling, we have an ethical checklist, and I wanted to introduce it here because I think it really does apply to our use of AI, and it's right from our book, Cause Selling. Is it legal? We asked several questions in that checklist. Is it legal? Is it ethical? Would I want someone else to act this way towards me in my AI usage? How would I explain my actions to someone else? How would it make me feel about these actions? Do we feel safe in reporting misconduct in our organization as it relates to ethics and AI usage? That's important, or any ethics. Do we adhere to the cause selling guidelines of ethical behavior, the universal code, which is do unto others as you wish them do unto you, truthfulness, personal accountability, and financial responsibility? As we move donors through that donor cycle, that journey that we give them, we must ensure accuracy, reliability, and how well AI is used. So I know we're getting close to our end time, but I thought the two big things for me that I loved putting together in this is AI use and why diversity, equity, and inclusion are ethical. And I would like to go over that. Diversity, inclusion, justice, and belonging. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. The current political system in the US, I'm not mentioning any parties, and the current societal system in the US wants us to limit or refine how DI efforts are impacted, are implemented, how we use them. Okay, that's number one. Number two, guys, there's a lot of uncertainty for organizations committed to equity as they put funding, legal standing, and public perception in flux. It is in flux, guys. Okay. Number three, there's no universal solution to this problem that we are facing as nonprofit leaders as it relates to DEIA. It just isn't out there. There's no universal solution. You're not going to get one today from Louie and I, and I just don't. I've looked for it. There isn't one. Okay. Here is a critical truth, guys, and I'm going to repeat it twice because I think it's so important. This is the truth. Equity work is about centering people, humanity, and creating spaces where everyone can thrive. Equity work is about centering people's humanity and finding and creating spaces where everyone can thrive. DEIA work is fundamentally aimed to disrupt systems of oppression like racism, sexism, and by increasing power sharing. That's what DEI is. It's about power sharing, okay? Attacks on DEI, and this is my personal opinion, are nothing short of attempts to preserve power and maintain the status quo. That's why we have to fight it, guys. We don't want the status quo. If you scale back your DEI efforts, you are just helping to perpetuate a system of oppression and undermine humanity in the workplace. We can't do that as nonprofit leaders. Understanding your values and how they map into risk your organization is facing will help you lead with clarity and strength. Look, the path forward, there's no universal solution. If your organization is totally dependent on federal funding, you may have to scale back your DEI efforts, okay? The path forward begins with us, in each of us and in our organization, with honest reflection on our organization's power, risk tolerance, and deepest values in order to stand up for the communities we serve. And that's the bottom line for me. We have to stand up for those communities we serve. So that's my thing about equity and diversity and inclusion. In the Dropbox, you're going to find a diversity pledge. I urge you to take a look at that, see if your organization can do that. You're going to find policies around privacy, and I think it's very important for us to remember that. I think one of the things that we should also look at as we end this webinar is conflict of interest. And there's some things in that Dropbox, and Deandra will put the link to that Dropbox in the chat. Go there. You have any questions for myself or for Mui, please come back with and talk to us. So a couple more slides and then I'll move on.
Yeah.
One of the things, go ahead.
Just something before you get into building ethical nonprofits. Those charities that are heavily reliant on federal funding, you want to move towards diversifying your fundraising streams, right? Getting more access to individual donors, putting more effort into deepening the relationships, expanding your prospects. And that's where the cost selling cycle can really help you as well. Looking at your prospect list, looking at your donors, asking them to share more within their spheres of influence, all of those things. So, many organizations that I've heard of that are in that challenging spot have tried to pivot to more focus on individual donors to relieve the stress of federal funding.
Yeah. And let's face it, guys, with all this societal demands, there are a lot of your individual donors are also going to be asking you about your DEI work, and get prepared for it because it's out there. So just to wrap up, we have a few more slides left. So I think that we need to build ethical nonprofits, and we start with the fundraiser. And I think that some of the key aspects of building an ethical nonprofit is to make sure our fundraisers, our staff, et cetera, are ethical. And so I'll just briefly, you've heard this all before, and and maybe in other seminars, et cetera. We have to have integrity. We have to uphold honesty, fairness, and objectivity, guys. We have to take responsibility, take accountability for one's actions and our commitment to the work, the mission, and the work that we do in the nonprofit sphere. And you already got this next one down, professional competence. Those of you who seek the CFRE or who seek the certification, the certificate at the Fundraising Academy, or who are just here today in this webinar, you are building your professional competence. At least I hope that Mui and I are doing that and helping you with that, okay? And of course, professional conduct. Adhere to the code of ethics, standards of ethical behavior that we hear from AFP, et cetera. Confidentiality is key to every fundraiser. It should be in every fundraiser's toolkit, and it's very important. And be aware, consider the societal needs, and act in ways that contribute to the greater good and promote just and compassionate communities. That's the work we're doing, guys, promoting just and compassionate communities. I feel like a preacher right now. And of course, be committed to lifelong learning. That's why you're here today. I'm committed, and I'm an old man, to lifelong learning. Mui could always teach me something new. What are the benefits of an ethical fundraising? It fosters donor trust and loyalty. It protects your reputation and your credibility and your organization's reputation and credibility. It increases the long-term sustainability of your organization. It enhances your effectiveness as an organization and as a fundraiser, and it attracts new donors and funders to your mission. Here's another thing, it's cost-effective, and it respects donors in ways that we need to let them know that we respect them. So when you're not ethical, what happens? It erodes public trust, it damages your reputation, and it leads to legal and financial problems. So what are some of the components of an ethical nonprofit organization? They have a clear mission. And the mission is not what they do, the mission is why they do it. So look at your mission and make sure it answers the question, why and not what, okay? If you're working in homelessness, why are you doing that work? If you're working in the arts, why are you doing that work, okay? Have codes of conduct, very important. Here's the other thing, Train your staff on ethics, even if they are not in the fundraising profession. Do it across the board, up and down the organization. Okay. Have talk to your board about ethics, train them, talk about ethics in board meetings, have a conflict of interest policy. And that's also going to be something that you're going to see in the Dropbox, a confidentiality agreement, very important. Have financial integrity, be transparent and accountable, and be accountable to your stakeholders, not just your donors, but your beneficiaries, your clients, those who depend upon you for services, your board, your leadership in your organization, and the people who also work for you, if you're a director of development, etc. And of course, public disclosure. Nonprofits should always comply with legal requirements for ethical disclosure. How do you build an ethical culture? One, ethical leadership. Leaders must articulate values and make decisions based on those values. Okay. There must be an ethical, explicit code of conduct, a code of values that the organization follows. And each organization's values may be different, but they're going to be generally the same as others. Transparency, accountability, that's how you build an ethical culture. Ethics must be a systemic part, organic part of your culture. We talk about a culture of philanthropy. Let's talk about an ethical culture. Let's be fair, have open communications and reporting, and let's be responsible to the culture and the people and the places we work with. And with that, any questions? Come on, you must have some questions.
Well, we went through all the ones that came in through the Q&A feature and most on the chat. Keith wants us to run for president in 2028.
Well, you can run for president. I'll be your vice president.
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Great. Getting a lot of thanks and saying that it was excellent, refreshing, more kudos. Jack really led the way.
Well,
Appreciate
thank
the
you.
kind comments. In terms of making all of this practical, right? Everybody just listened for an hour and 10 minutes. And what would you say the first thing they should be doing going back from this presentation is? Maybe just one takeaway of having conversations with their staff in terms of like doing a current audit, right? This would be my suggestion of like, how are you currently utilizing it? What are the ways that you could use it administratively, in marketing, in development, in finance, in other areas, in HR, all throughout your organization, right? Beyond fundraising, how do you really integrate AI? How do you bring ethics into the conversation? And some of these are larger conversations that need to be had with other people across your organization. And some of you might be at organizations where it's only less than 5 staff members. Others could be at places where it's 500 staff members, right? So those conversations also look different. But I think the main thing is looking at what is your role within the institution? Who can you pull into the conversation? And what are 3 things that you can try to implement within the next 3 months and go from there?
Yeah. Well, I like the AI part. I think when I look at the 7 documents in there, one of the things that I love, and you could see my passion around diversity, equity, and inclusion, is taking the diversity pledge. Now, many organizations have a diversity statement, but I want us to go one step further, and I want you to look at that diversity pledge and bring it to your leadership, as Mui says. Talk about it among your staff. Bring it to your board if you can, and talk about it there. There are some fabulous diversity pledges out there, and I looked at 2 of them. One was the NAACP, and they have a fabulous diversity pledge. And it's a very simple statement that I included in that diversity pledge. And the other is the Southern Poverty Law Center. So take a look at some diversity pledges. Maybe you can't do all of the things in a diversity pledge, but to me, I can't emphasize enough, and I hope you saw it in my presentation, the passion I have for not doing away with DEI, not doing away. I talk with my colleague, uh, uh, and I say I always look at my path in life and like the CFRE. Nui, I mean, I started here and it was a straight line to the CFRE. Well,
Yeah.
other people don't take that straight line. Some
Right.
women have families, so their lines may be more like this. Or some people who from marginalized communities may have roadblocks in it. And I read a wonderful article from a woman who went to Cambridge, and she said DEI is the wind at the backs of people who have been marginalized for so long. And
Yeah.
we can't stop that wind. We don't want to stop that wind. But we also have to recognize that each of us has to determine how we deal with the with the efforts to destroy DEI. As persons, as people, I know what I could do, how I could do my, and how much I could go. And each of us has to ask that. And it's not going to be the same for all of us. So with that, I'm going to summarize
One last question that came
okay.
in is, and you may be on a soapbox about this as well. How do
Okay.
you feel about donor-centric mindset?
Oh my gosh. You know what? So my, my colleague and I, Angela Barnes, did a thing about community-centric fundraising. Um, so I teach donor-centric fundraising quite a bit, but I have to say that it's time for us to introduce our beneficiaries and donors, our beneficiaries and clients to our donors. Can I say something? Donors are waiting for us to do this. If we are sheltering our donors from the beneficiaries and clients that we serve, then donors are they want to hear it. And I think the best way to bring a community-centric approach is storytelling. Tell the story of the people we serve. Have them tell their story. Better yet, have them tell the story. Have them do it. I'm not an expert on community-centric fundraising, but I think we need a new model of fundraising. It's going to take a lot of effort because there's 17 books out there. I think I counted on donor-centric fundraising, thousands of articles on donor-centric fundraising, and thousands of webinars and seminars. But it's time for us to ask our beneficiaries and clients how to solve their problems and not depend on some. And I've worked for organizations like this, Mui. I know I'm on my soapbox. I've worked for organizations, healthcare organizations that the people on the board would never use that hospital. They'd go to UCLA or some other, you know, flagship hospital, not use a disproportionate share hospital. Well, it's time to get those beneficiaries and clients who use that service to figure out, to help us figure out how to solve their problems. Let's ask them. They'll tell us. Okay, so we talked about a lot of things today. We talked about ethics in the fundraising cycle, and we talked about how to approach AI and ethics around AI. I have to admit that I did use some AI to craft some of these documents in the Google thing, but I carefully, as an ethical person using AI, I carefully looked at them to make sure that those documents were consistent with my values as well as the values of the profession. So take a look at that. And the third thing here is checklist. How important are checklists? Auditing AI processes, a checklist. You got to do it, guys. If you're not doing it now, it's going to come down the pike where it'll be mandated. And finally, and most importantly, at least for me, maybe AI is more important for you, why diversity, equity, and inclusion are ethical. And we have to start saying it's an ethical precept and thing that we need to do ethically. With that, I'm going to put this up because Louie and I want you to connect with us on LinkedIn
And
And
we also want you to connect with Fundraising Academy and join the email list. So maybe go back to last one so people can scan all the QR codes. I know there was a lot there.
yeah,
And again, Fundraising Academy is on LinkedIn too. You can find all of the information about the next webinars, different blog posts, everything there through our email list as well. So hopefully you've had a chance to scan these codes. And the next slide is going to be on our webinar portal or portal online, where you will have access to all of the previously recorded webinars. Once this is recorded and put up, it'll be up there as well. So if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to a portal where you can register at no cost. You get different resources, toolkits, worksheets, donor conversation questions, and informative blogs. One of our other colleagues, Jarrett Ransom, has written a blog that should be live up there as well. So you also can learn about our Fundraising Essentials Certificate, where this is a paid to learn program where you can get hundreds of hours of continuing education credits. Jack is one of the authors on a lot of these courses, and it takes you through an immersive self-paced learning process. So you and your teams can have organizational licenses to further your professional development as well.
good. And I think I love the caps. I love this fundraising essential certificate. Know some people in there. I highly urge you to do it. I'm running the capstone project, so I'm excited about that, which is creation of a development plan. So get on that. Here we got this is this the last slide? Register at no cost. I see on my slide. I love that. Register at no cost. Easy.
Yep. Next month, you'll be hearing from Jarrett Ransom and Meredith Tarian, both wonderful colleagues of ours, and it'll be on from the ask to appreciation, closing the year with donor care and results. So a little bit more about making the ask and stewardship and the whole process in between. And
Thank you.
again, thank you so much for being here. We really
Yeah, and
appreciate it.
I think my closing thing is fundraisers don't get enough love. Got my love. I'm sending you my love. Peace. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thank you for joining.